Hello, everyone. It's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. So, guys, I have a really interesting show today. I have three researchers. I think they'll be okay with me calling them researchers, who were ahead of the Bernie group. In fact, they were in charge of one of the Bernie Sanders groups that was in the news that supposedly had been inundated with Russian trolls and with fake ads. And the person who was pushing this particular narrative, they made the point to say that guy was not an admin. The media, the media ran with the narrative without ever really even checking to see if the guy was what the guy said he was. So I have three. So I have Joan Mickelson, I have Jim Boydston, and I have Josephine. Josephine, I didn't get your last name, or the very least I couldn't hear your last
name. Piruli.
Piruli. So please say hello to the audience, guys.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, everyone. Fellow progressives.
Thank you for having us on your show.
I am happy to have you on the show because whether you're on the left or right side of the political spectrum, I think both sides are somewhat annoyed with this particular story. They pushed the narrative, and they've stuck to this particular narrative despite some of the stuff not necessarily falling in line with their narrative. And one of those things was your story, the thing that you guys have to say. Yes. So could you give me a decent summary of what's taking place? Meaning this guy, John Matt, comes out saying that he was an admin on a Facebook group that you guys were actually the admins on.
Yes.
And he was never an admin on this group. Explain what happened. Give me a decent summary of the story of what's taking place up to this point.
Well, Crystal Coleman, she started the San Diego for Bernie Sanders 2016 group page and made Joanne and myself admins on that page. Jim was a frequent flyer on that page, very active on that page. And John Mattis never, ever was an admin. He came out and started going to local papers saying he was an admin, and that our pages were inundated with fake news stories from Russia, Macedonia, Albania, I don't know, whatever. He was just going off the rails. And we were contacting him, telling him, hey, this is bullshit. We're tagging him on Facebook. Why are you spreading these lies? Because our pages were never inundated with this crap. We had more trouble with correct record trolls, not Russia stuff. Joanne, I think you contacted him on email, didn't you?
Joanne, you contacted them on email, right? Joanne can't necessarily hear the
I contacted them on the links that they would have at the bottom of their pages or their email addresses that I could find online to say that you guys didn't fact check the story. He was never an admin. We were the admins. You need to contact those of us who are actually the admins there. And I repeated what Josephine said, that we did not have a problem with Russian trolls. We have a problem with correct record trolls.
But didn't you try to contact John Mattis also to tell him that he needs to stop spreading these rumors?
Well, that's interesting. Yeah. Did you contact John Mattis himself? I mean, the guy runs around and apparently people start talking to him. But at the point where you say, wait a minute, this guy was never an admin. This guy was never, he's not what he says he is. Essentially, he's just out there lying at the top of his lungs. Did you contact John Mattis himself? I mean, did you contact the person directly to say, hey, stop spreading these lies about being head of the, essentially, A, being an admin, and B, having all of these quote unquote Russian trolls?
We challenged him online directly, all three of us, multiple times, and he would never respond to anything we said.
Wow.
Then finally, one day, he messaged me on Facebook and he said, Joanne, you know that I've done so much for a Bernie Sanders campaign and that I put so much money into it. Like basically, why are you challenging me when you know that I'm such a great Bernie Sanders supporter? But I have to tell you, I looked into his record about his money. He didn't donate a single penny to Bernie Sanders campaign. That was number one. And number two, the money, like some of the local stuff that we would do, sometimes he and I would agree to share some costs. Then I saw that he was getting checks from a private PAC to cover his expenses.
Whoa. So, wait, two questions. So did you know Mattis or John Mattis before all of this took place? Meaning, was he actually part of the group even if he wasn't necessarily an admin in the group?
Yes, we all worked together at the grassroots level locally for Bernie Sanders' campaign, and John Mattis claimed to be one of the originators of it, and one of the people who was part of the PDA and persuaded Bernie to run as a Democrat.
Wow. Wow.
The first time I met him was at a PDA meeting, a local branch in San Diego. And he did show up and volunteer at some events. And he put on viewing parties for election results when each state was having their election. He put those on. But sometimes I think he was just monitoring us. And now, in hindsight, when we look back on all this, I'm like, okay, what did he do exactly other than just watch and see what we were doing?
That is amazing. Now, you said you found that he was getting money from a PAC. Now, how did you find that he was getting money from a PAC? How were you able to, I guess, how were you able to figure that out?
Because when I was telling him what some of our costs was, I saw him telling this other gentleman who was writing him a check or was handing him money for this. And another thing that they did is they would have host parties called Beers for Bernie.
Yeah.
And if you would donate, you know, like $1 for every beer that you buy, and then we would donate it to Bernie, none of that money ever went to Bernie.
Now, that's the other question. So how do you know that none of the money went to Sanders?
Because I checked his record, his donation record, and nothing ever went to Bernie Sanders from him personally. And then when we challenged him at a later date, we can tell you about that later, and I had mentioned, and John didn't pay a single penny, and he stood there and he shook his head. He said, "No, I did not."
Oh, he admitted to it. He admitted that he didn't pay a dime to the Sanders campaign.
Long after, this is during when he was peddling his story around to all of the local Democratic clubs, and we went to one of these sub meetings to challenge his story.
Wow.
That was a whole nightmare in itself.
Okay, so you're covering so much here. You found all this stuff out, Joanne, on the FEC website, right?
On the what?
On the FEC website?
FEC, Federal Exchange Commission's website, where you can check the amount that the donors, politicians are getting.
Yeah, so I checked his record, and then I also checked the records of that PAC.
What was the name of the PAC?
Money to Bernie either.
What was the name of the PAC, by the way?
It's called Much Better Choices.
Their website is different now. It doesn't have anything about Bernie. It has the old stuff from San Onofre. Anyway,
are you familiar with the issues about the former San Onofre nuclear reactors here?
No, I'm not fully.
It's a radiological waste issue, and they're active on that.
Oh, I see what you mean. So the much better. Okay, I see what you mean. That's the super PAC is essentially the same super PAC dealing with that. It's the same super PAC dealing with. Oh, wow.
Super PAC, to my knowledge, is a regular PAC.
Oh, just a regular PAC. Okay.
Anyway, so John Mattis started going to all these Democratic club meetings, and started putting on a presentation about how Russia invaded our Facebook pages. And finally, we have like 15 Democratic clubs at least. And finally, we couldn't take it anymore. And we said, hey, he's going to be talking in a Vista club. Let's go up there. And so we all went, and we tried to confront him, and we got attacked by all the people in that club and said we weren't welcome there.
And he literally tried to cut and run when we tried to confront him.
Wow, that is amazing. You know why you were attacked. You weren't attacked because what you're saying was false.
No,
you were also attacked because you had all these Democrats who have their identity to some degree invested in this thing of Russia. Because, oh my God, this woman who I love so much, who walked on air, who was a great person in any physical matter reality, lost to a reality show.
And to top it off, when he was attacking us, he said, well, I voted for Hillary and I'm proud of it. Who did you vote for?
Jill.
That is amazing. That is
there
amazing.
A lot of vote blue, no matter who people there.
You know, I mean, the wild part about it is people have just kind of toed a line, and they've said it was Russia because they don't want to deal with the reality that she lost. Yes. Like the members in the party don't want to deal with that reality. They don't want to figure out why they failed, what's wrong with the party. They don't want to figure out why all these people left. It is far easier for them to say it was Russia. Russia did it. That's the only reason why.
Joanne, Joanne, tell them what happened when you went to the Progressive Democrat meeting. I stopped going after the primary, but Joanne kept going to the meeting. Tell them
what happened at the Progressive meeting, Joanne?
Okay, so we were at a meeting. It was in January or February 2017, and everybody was lamenting the fact that Trump had won, and they had talked about the demographics of who was voting for Trump, and Don jumped up and he said, it's older white people.
But
he said, you know what older white people are afraid of more than anything else in the world? He said, Russia.
Oh, wow.
And he said, and we need to tell them that Russia was behind Trump.
That's amazing.
They have been taught all their lives, he's talking about his generation, to hate Russia. And if we tell them that it was Russia, then they might not do that again.
You know, going back to 2015, one of the things that came up in WikiLeaks documents was an email that went to Hillary Clinton saying, use Russia to slay Trump.
Yep.
And, you know, even in the book Shattered, immediately after the election, Hillary Clinton pulls her people together, say, I didn't lose because I was a horrible candidate. I didn't lose because, you know, of all my failings and, you know, pushing NAFTA and all this other stuff. I lost because of Trump and Russia. And make those people know it. And send her media team out there to scream into every microphone that they can find, Trump and Russia. And the wild part about this is when you even go up to the Comey thing and you look at what was taking place from the standpoint of the investigation with Hillary Clinton and Comey, he let her off even before getting to this point. And the reason why I bring this up is because there's a direct link between the people who were involved with getting her off and with putting Trump on this thing. And part of the way they were able to do it was because people screamed Trump and Russia. It wasn't because of evidence. Like, it wasn't because there was something there. It was more so because people were screaming it, meaning the Democratic Party, Hillary screamed it, Democratic Party followed suit, the media carried it. And at that point, this becomes this kind of congressional action based on this reality that was created based on these people creating this false thing. This even went to, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's all right. One of the things that people have to absolutely acknowledge is that Donald Trump's pal, Bill Clinton, absolutely encouraged him to run as a Republican.
Yeah.
There is evidence.
Brinksmanship. Well, it's brinksmanship. But like I've made this point before, you know, when Republicans used to run, there's something to be said when you're running for the top 1% of the demographic. How on earth do you get the majority of the people to vote for you when your policies are very specific to the top 1%? Well, you deal with the factions of the, you know, people who don't necessarily care about those issues. So you may go for these religious demographics. You may go for plutocrats because, you know, that is their demographic. But you also try to trick the public and you try to suppress the vote. Democrats have gotten to the point now where they've started using gamesmanship because they can't necessarily scurry up enough votes based just on their platform and their values. I mean, think about what Hillary Clinton did there is exactly what's taking place in West Virginia in the primaries, where they were trying to get that horrible Republican to go against Joe Manchin because they thought that was the only guy Joe Manchin could beat. What the woman was doing, I think it was in North Dakota, where they was putting up that horrible Republican. She was literally buying ads for the Republican that was batshit crazy because she figured that's the only person they could beat. And ultimately, this is the same strategy that Hillary Clinton was losing because, as WikiLeaks shows in those documents, they thought Donald Trump was the only person she could beat. And he didn't even beat him.
To me, this boils down to a fundamental issue that the establishment tries to pull on we the people and keep us focused on what I call identity politics.
Yeah.
It's not about, and to me, it's never about the puppets. It's about the puppeteers.
I agree. I mean, it's, you know, it's a few things. So the Russia thing, as despicable as I think it is that they're positioning us against another nuclear power for their own political benefit, it is to some degree slightly effective. I mean, if you look at the ability to tie his hands up with an investigation, which I don't necessarily want Trump doing bad things. I just don't like this being the strategy to do it because it does a few things. It hits the left, meaning one of the things that the old Cold War was this thing of pacifying the left, meaning having the Democratic Party being as far left as you can go. So you have that part. But the other angle that they were talking about in that meeting is right. All of these older people with this thing in their heads about Russia because they lived it, breathed it, and experienced it through the Cold War, trying to revive that. I mean, it makes sense as a political strategy. It just sucks from the standpoint of being a decent human being.
And as a former, as a veteran of the Cold War,
Yeah.
I know it's all bullshit.
You said Ryan Grimm, as he was working for TYT, also did a report on this and got this magnificently wrong, meaning even he didn't check the source of the information that he was putting out.
No. And neither did Rachel Maddow. She covered it on her show, and she talked about John Mattis, saying how our pages were inundated with fake news stories. We had one fake news story, and it was covered on NPR, which tracked the story from a suburb in Los Angeles.
And speaking of Rachel Maddow,
that woman is often, yeah, she's on her, yeah, she's off her rocker.
I don't know if you noticed my shirt.
What is this, Alabama Western?
No, it says Jim Albanian Boston. on March 21st of 2017 Rachel Maddow show, that's where she referenced John Mattis, and she was going on and on about Russiagate and
she always
Albanian does. And Macedonian bots.
Wow, that's amazing.
Get a screenshot of our Facebook page
and of the San Diego Bernie Kratz page, and one of my posts, which was just absolutely nothing but truth, was her backdrop. And so a lot of people, even people who've known me in real life for decades, were convinced by that I was an Albanian bot.
Are you serious?
Yes.
Oh God, she's been weaving one conspiracy theory after the next.
Have to do mental
Trump. I remember one time it was Trump and Iranians. Like Trump is working with the Iranians. Some other time Trump is mobsters from Russia. That's, I mean, it's like it gets to be so insane. And now she's saying you're an Albanian bot that invaded the Bernie Sanders page, as opposed to you actually just being the admin of the Bernie Sanders page.
Well, I was an admin, and so was Joanne and Crystal. Jim was a frequent flyer on our page.
Yeah, I was just on the page all the time.
Should have been an admin.
And that was one of the things too. When John Mattis started coming up with all of his Russiagate narrative, along with Joanne and Josephine, I confronted him about it online, both privately and publicly on the page.
Did he respond?
Pardon me?
Did he respond?
His only response to me was privately, and he complained about my lack of establishment support, and then blocked me.
What does that mean? Your lack of
because I've always been an independent. I became a Democrat only when Josephine and I were pledged delegates for Bernie, and so I've never been a vote blue no matter who.
Right.
And that's basically what he was criticizing me for.
But you guys, I mean, this is amazing. So just so I'm processing this correctly, a man comes out with all the Russiagate stuff, as the Russiagate stuff is going on. He says, I was an admin on a Bernie Sanders group, the Bernie Sanders, San Diego for Bernie Sanders. And we were inundated with Russian trolls and Russian ads. Right. Attacking Hillary Clinton.
That's what he was.
All of these people take the narrative and run with it.
Yeah.
Rachel Maddow included, TYT included, and no one ever asks, well, wait a minute, was he actually an admin? They just took his word for it. Nobody asked this question. Like, this is just a basic fundamental question.
Right. Nobody in the media or the establishment, if you will, ever questioned him on that. And as far as I'm concerned, I mean, if we were able to actually follow the money, I wouldn't be surprised if he was on David Brock's payroll.
I wouldn't be. You know what? It's funny that you say that. People are sometimes always shocked when they think of the political machinations of certain people. Meaning, if the presidency is at stake, what do you do in order to try to get into the office? You have these people who are in these offices who are talking about killing other people, who are putting people in, concentration camps, or not concentration camps, in black sites, who are talking about invading other countries. But we don't believe that they would go to the lengths of maybe putting somebody in somebody else's campaign to spy on the campaign. I think that's one of those things that you would it should be assumed. Like, I don't necessarily think it's one of those things that's shocking to me. From the standpoint of, if you're trying to take political office, you do what you need to do to take political office. I don't know if this guy's on the payroll. I would say it is very strange that either he is a psychopath, where he just lies for the sake of lying, or he's doing it for purpose.
We don't know his motivation. Joanne's pretty convinced he was a mole.
Yeah.
I think so.
Attack us about that.
Really?
He had his wife email me and attack me by email, but he never responded. Other than that one Facebook message that said, you know, I paid. Why are you like harassing me or something? First off, he didn't pay anything. That's number one. Number two, I'm just challenging him on his story. He's not stating a fact.
That's kind of what I'm getting at. Even going beyond the thing, what would be his motivation? Like, assuming for the moment, like, so say for the moment, if he just wanted to take cash, meaning he wanted to do something that was somewhat duplicitous in order to get how much cash. But going out and saying, I was a Bernie Sanders admin, it's a little different. I mean, that's something that's stark and something that could be just, he
dropped
what would be his motivation for this? So you think
he dropped saying he was an admin once the big news outlets started covering.
Well, he didn't have to anymore. At that point,
he gained all the credibility he needed. Yeah.
He did. Even in an NBC News piece locally, they did say that he was a Facebook admin, and that's why, remember, Bernie called him one of our social media guys in San Diego. That's who Bernie was referring to.
Oh, are you serious?
Yes.
That guy?
And Jamal, we were never.
I know who you're talking about. Like, I did this story, right? So one of the stories I did, it was this thing where Bernie Sanders comes out and says, one of my people went out and hit the media. And this guy was in the media and he said, well, Bernie Sanders never told me to do this, and et cetera. I should charge Bernie Sanders for the amount of work that I've been doing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, we were never working. We were never for Bernie's campaign. We all did this on a grassroots level.
That's amazing. Man, that's amazing. Like, what?
Another thing, Jamal, because we were actually quite friendly. My family was quite friendly with him and his wife.
Yeah.
So we had been out to a long lunch just the week before, and he never, it was like, a matter of days before the story broke, he never said to me, oh, by the way, I'm doing this investigation regarding the Facebook group. And since you're an admin, what's your input or anything? He never mentioned it. He knew us all personally, and he knew me very well personally, and never mentioned a single thing to us about his, quote, investigation into Russian bots, even though he knew we were the admin. And that, to me, in itself makes the entire story really suspect, because if you were doing an actual investigation, the first place I would go is to the administrators to say, hey, guys, I've noticed some weird patterns. Are you noticing this? Did you see this, this, and this? He never came to any of the admins during his whole entire, quote, 6-month investigation. He never said anything to us, even though he saw us those days before the story broke. We had a 3-hour lunch. He never mentioned a word about this.
Yeah, I suspect because I think I see what's going on. Or I can't see what's going on. But if you look at certain incentives or drives, if the guy considers himself a Democrat, like, assume for the moment that him chastising you for your experience, saying, you're not established enough, you're not part of the party enough. Would he do something like that to put a knife in Sanders? Like, if he was one of these people who believed, well, I tried to push for Sanders, he didn't get it, now I'm on Hillary Clinton's bandwagon, I voted for Hillary Clinton, who did you vote? That type of stuff. But this seems to jump the shark like nobody's business. It's. And you said you even contacted the media organizations. What did the media say when you contacted them as rightful, real admins of the group, where you can verify that you were admins of the group? What did the media say when you contacted them saying, hey, your story is wrong?
I never got a single response from any media organization at all.
Who did you contact in the media organization? Organizations?
MSNBC, I believe Huffington Post. Then I put comments on other things, and I said, this is a lie, blah, blah, blah. Nobody ever said anything. I emailed Fox News just because I was trying to get the story out, what the truth was. I contacted marketing from Facebook, because he was kind of dragged into the dirt with all this, because he came out and said, look, all these ads that were supposedly put there by Russia, most of them happened after the election, and 56%. Most of them never referenced the candidate at all anyway.
That's right.
And he got slammed for that. I don't know if you remember that.
I remember that. It's pushing against a narrative. I mean, honestly, that's literally what it boils down to. We have a narrative that we want to establish, and we're going to scream it into every microphone that we can find. And yeah, the media went with it. It's like, how dare you say that these ads came after, you know, the election? How dare you speak the truth to us when we're in our thing of hatred of Donald Trump? Well, it's amazing.
That's what I always tell people when I talk about the MSM. There are 6 corporate reasons why we should ignore the mainstream media.
Yeah, because there are only 6 like mainstream media corporations, right? It's like 6 or 7. That's amazing, guys. It's mind-blowing to me that this is so easily disproven, and they never went to the steps I try to disprove. And we were talking beforehand, I was kind of making this point with the Julian Assange thing. When I look at people's behavior from the standpoint of politics, I often end up and say, what was the end result of what they were doing? Now, some things happen accidentally, of course, but some things not so much, meaning some things are intentional. When The Guardian publishes a severe piece on Julian Assange, and they don't wait for the prior president who would know, like the person who would have the answers that they were kind of pushing out or putting out there in their article, they don't wait. He makes the point and says they send it to an address in Ecuador. He's in Bulgaria, and they just published the story without even talking to him. He explains away their story, meaning this bombshell thing that they came out attacking Julian Assange. He explains it away, saying part of the story is nonsense, and the other part of the story is not as they characterize it. They didn't care. They didn't care. That's my point. Yeah. They could have, the moment that somebody constantly say, hey, your story is wrong, you either accept the fact that the story is wrong, or you ignore the person who says it. And seeing as you have a huge number of people who are running with the narrative, it is easy to ignore people who are trying to poke a hole in the story that's taking place.
That's definitely what happened in our case.
That's amazing, guys. That is absolutely amazing.
The story was pre-planted. And again, even like when John said that in the PDA meeting, that what old white people are afraid of is Russia. And all of us, I mean, a whole bunch of us in the room, and this is obviously, this is not, you know, we were not happy that Trump won.
Yeah.
Even when he said that, everybody in the room just kind of went silent, because at first we thought he was joking. Some of us started laughing, like that he was doing the red scare thing.
Yeah.
And then he sat in disbelief as he kept going on and on. It's like, oh my gosh, he's serious.
But it worked. I mean, whether he was doing this because he was pushed, whether he was doing this because it was this kind of implanting certain ideas into certain campaigns in order to create this big media splash, he ended up on Maddow and all of these other networks who were looking for maniacs essentially to give a particular story. It worked.
Some of us were very convinced that he was absolutely working for the Democratic Party or Hillary Clinton. He used to work with John Kerry. And,
is this a journalist, by the way? It's
yes.
Okay, so it's this guy, because I want to show the audience who we're talking about. John Metz, right here.
Yeah.
Oh, M-E-T-T-E-S. Oh, okay. All right. So this guy, I remember him. I remember this story because they were giving Bernie Sanders a hard time about this. And I was like, it's absurd that they're giving Bernie Sanders a hard time about this.
Yeah, that's him.
Oh, look, that's John Mattis.
This guy, John Mattis. Right, I know, right? The other John Mattis.
Yeah, he was going around saying that all the Bernie people were fooled into not voting for Hillary. Fooled by the Russia story.
That's kind of what I mean. Like, right there. Do you remember there were certain reporters that came up in the WikiLeaks thing saying, I'm going to pretend to be on the side of Bernie Sanders. So when Bernie Sanders loses, I could come out and try to sheepdog people into the Democratic Party. Meaning there were people out there who were literally in the media establishment that was sent there specifically to do a job.
Yeah.
Would I be shocked if this guy was there to do something similar? Whether he was motivated on his own steam to say, I tried for Bernie. When Bernie didn't get it, I'm a Hillary, you know, I'm a Hillary-crat or this kind of Hillbot, in which case I need to push the narrative like everybody else. I don't necessarily know his motivations, but this looks gross.
It was organic. Just knowing him personally and knowing his stories and knowing how this all transpired, I don't believe for 1 second that this is an organic thing for him. This was, in my opinion, very much a planned operation.
Essentially a political plan.
How it happened and what he was saying and what he was doing, the fact that he never responded to us when we challenged him, the fact that he never addressed, and then I sent a big long email back and forth with his wife saying, why is he saying this, and this?
Did she respond? I'm curious. Did his wife respond?
Oh, his wife and I went back and forth, and then she, at one point, I think she's an innocent victim, to be honest. I don't think she's aware of whatever he's doing. She was so upset with how we were speaking to him, you know, and the horrible things that we were accusing him of. And once I explained why, and I said this, and this are lies, and you know this, and why isn't he addressing our challenges online? Why isn't he addressing the points that we're bringing up? And then she at one point said, okay, I guess I can understand where you guys are coming from. And then she read the stuff on Facebook, because we were pretty strong. The three of us were pretty strong in challenging him.
Yeah.
And then she emailed me again, I just read that, and I can't believe you guys are so mean, and I hate you, and never call me again, basically. So, and again, I don't hold anything against her. I think she's completely innocent and naive about the whole thing. But it was interesting that he stuck his wife and his sister
In the firing line.
Yeah.
Instead of him responding, he sent his wife and his sister to try to challenge us.
That's amazing.
And his wife was never active, like, online or anything before that.
Wow.
It goes in line with his cowardly nature, because when we tried to address him at the Vista Democratic Club, he was trying to get out, and Madge stopped him at the door and said, we want to talk to you.
Wow.
Now, then there's an interesting connection, and I'm even hesitant to say this
Go ahead.
live or anything.
We can put quotes around it where, you know, it's.
So this is all
Yeah.
my conjecture, and this has nothing to do, there's no evidence of any foul play.
Fair enough.
But the place that he lives is a beachfront penthouse condo. He doesn't work. I've asked him, my gosh, how do you guys afford this? And he laughed and he said, oh, we get a really good deal. And then he's like, a really, really good deal. So once all this stuff transpired, I said, you know what, I'm going to look into this. So I looked into the ownership records of the condo.
Yeah.
And it's owned by a pair of siblings whose father worked for Bill Clinton.
Are you serious?
Yes. Now that could be an entirely
That could be coincidental.
coincidence.
You know, there's another coincidence in New York. So Lee Camp did this video where he went through and they were finding the records for. Do you remember all those people got thrown off the rolls in Brooklyn? I think it was like 100,000 and 200,000.
126,000, if I recall correctly.
And broke federal law, broke state law, got a slap on the wrist. Nothing took place. Right now, even now, they were having issues with the essentially the records systems and or the roll results. Even now, but Lee Camp kind of went through the thing and found this weird real estate thing where somebody bought the house from the person who actually did all of these, you know, responsible for the thing. Yeah. And making a point of saying this house had rats infested and everything else. And they gave this person mounds and mounds and mounds of money for this house. And the person who ended up doing it was like some kind of, you know, intermediary for the Clintons or something like that. Like, or the Democratic Party. I'm not shocked by that in the least. I mean, I guess my feeling is it's politics. Like these guys are trying to get into office and there are millions and millions. You're talking about a federal budget that's in like $1 trillion or more than trillions of dollars. That money gets allocated. You're talking about services going to people. You're talking about tax cuts. You're talking about all these things. These people want to get into power. And the question becomes, what are you willing to do it? If it was me, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Are you aware of the election fraud that took place in California during the primary season?
Yes. One of the people I had on, I think it was a gentleman, Eric Reiberg, was talking about it the other day. And I've even heard the election fraud place. I can't think of the name of it, the organization that looks into the stuff where they have reams of the stuff of saying.
Oversight Project.
Yeah, right. And it's, but
I
that's
mean,
not California.
I sat there and watched them give out provisional ballots like they were lollipops. And then when we watched them process the ballots at the registrar of voters office, we saw them lighting out the bubble that had Bernie's name circled in.
That's amazing.
Thousands and thousands in one day.
And there's video evidence of that.
You know, the wild part about it is you had, they always like to say, well, I mean, it's the Democratic Party doesn't necessarily handle the election stuff. But it's like, but you understand those people are not non-biased actors who are working at those places.
Our Secretary of State was fundraising for Hillary.
And you're aware of the election fraud that occurred in 2004 in Ohio, right?
John Kerry, right?
Our San Diego County Registrar of Voters, Michael Vu, was the ROV in Ohio, and he was forced to resign over that.
You know, John Kerry wouldn't even bring that up. They were showing Kerry that there was a mismatch in the vote, saying that, look, the vote totals don't make sense. And John Kerry still would not bring it up, would not bring up the fact that there was something wrong with those results. Tim Canova, to his credit, brought it up.
I'm glad he's running as an independent.
Man, yes. And it's like, he says, he's like, look, if these people are going to give me money to run in the election, I'm going to represent those people fully. Meaning, yeah, I'm going to make sure that I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure that the result is what they say the result is. It's, you know, this is a big deal.
Right.
And they destroyed the ballots.
Yeah.
Now, think about if Tim Canova never actually pushed and never actually said what's taking place here. Like this shady dealings. And the judge comes out and the judge looked at this case and said, I am unconvinced in what you're telling me in your rationale and your reasoning for destroying those ballots. Oh, it's like, yes.
Absolutely
Yes.
amazing.
Loved it. Absolutely loved it.
But one thing also to remember, Alex Padilla, who's our Secretary of State out here in California, was campaigning for Hillary Clinton.
Right. He did a fundraiser for her.
And he was hosting fundraisers for her.
This is what I mean. Like, this is not, like, these people are not, you know, these separate, distinct, impartial entities that are, you know, untouched by the political winds in a system. And so, no, nonsense.
No.
Any more than the Supreme Court is full of non-biased actors.
Don't forget that they called the election
Before.
the country's most populous state even had a chance to vote.
And isn't that amazing?
And nobody says anything. They talk about Russia. They don't talk about that.
And by the way, they called the election before the election was really even officially over.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
the provisional,
Before our election day.
yeah, super delegates don't count until they count. Like it's like they're like Hillary Clinton won, and they were even using those super delegates. There's a quirk in human nature. There's a few quirks in human nature, but one of the quirks in human nature is this thing of wanting to belong to the crowd. For whatever reason, human beings like to belong to crowds. They've done tests like this. So even if you had, let's say you had 10 people in a room, and let's say everybody in the room answered the question wrong, one of the people would still say, ugh, and he would answer the question wrong, knowing that these other people are wrong in their assessment because he wants to belong to the group. They do this, meaning they put those super delegates out there to make it look as if this is an insurmountable amount for Sanders to catch. Not really making the point that these guys aren't real.
We were out on the streets. We weren't just on social media. We were out on the streets because we were trying to get people registered to vote. We would go out every weekend with our table, our banners, hand out flyers about Bernie. And I'm telling you, there's people that were not going to settle for Hillary. Bernie reached across party lines. He was reaching to libertarians, to Green Party, to Republicans. And when he lost, they weren't going to go, okay, well, let's just vote for Hillary. They're going back to their original party.
And as far as superdelegates are concerned, at the convention, there was one roll call vote on Tuesday at the convention. And my understanding of the DNC rules is that in the first roll call vote, superdelegate votes are not supposed to be counted. And they were thrown in, and a lot of people are fairly convinced that it was probably because Bernie won the first roll call vote until they added the superdelegate votes.
Yep.
And then they forced him to concede.
Personally, I think the fix was in. That's
Oh, absolutely.
For sure.
I think.
I believe that Donald Trump was the chosen establishment tool from day one. Speaking of the fix being in.
Well, the thing is, I think they wanted Donald Trump to run because I thought that was the only person they could beat. And the reason I say that is when you look at the emails, some of the stuff that comes up is, or Shattered. When you read Shattered, you get this idea of a campaign that was essentially falling apart. Like where the people in the campaign didn't necessarily like Clinton, meaning the own candidate, and wondered loudly, oh man, is it, does it bother any of you that Donald Trump is the only person we think that she can beat?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, that's sad. That's an understatement. Wildly unpopular is an understatement.
The first time.
And then to acknowledge the fact that the Clintons and the Trumps have been buddies for decades.
Yeah, nobody likes to admit that. Like for all the hate that they like to give Donald Trump and everything else, nobody likes to admit that very specific point. They've created a narrative. And look, Donald Trump is called the media fake news, so the media hates Donald Trump. I think that they may even think that Donald Trump is a clear and present danger because they didn't expect him to win. I even suspect that they would have loved a Clinton presidency, and the fact that they didn't get that Clinton presidency bugs the shit out of them to no end. I think Democrats, for the most part, can't process that their candidate lost to reality. I don't think they can. I don't think they have a paradigm for it. So I think the Trump Russia stuff,
anything under the sun,
anything they could come up with. Bernie Sanders is a horrible person. I heard Joy Reid. There's a thing with Joy Reid talking about Bernie Sanders was being sexually aggressive to Jane Sanders. Like, these people are maniacs. They come up with all sorts of weird stuff. Yeah, they're maniacs.
And the vote blue, no matter who's, refused to acknowledge that even if Hillary Clinton was our president right now, we'd still be killing lots of innocent people in the Middle East.
Oh, yeah.
And we still would have done that nasty tax cut. Yeah. I mean, we would have still been ignoring what Israel is doing right now. They talk about incremental stuff.
She would be doing all the things that Trump is doing, except she would do it with a smile on her face and nice words.
And the media wouldn't care, and the Democratic Party would shut up and just go about their affairs.
Absolutely.
So, guys, is there anything else before we go that you guys want to say about either this issue or just want to say in general? I always give my guests the last say in case they have something that I didn't ask.
I just really appreciate that you're willing to cover this and get the truth out.
Absolutely.
Since we are getting stonewalled everywhere with this story, nobody cares because they're just, they just want to run with that Russia story, and it started here locally, and it's all a lie.
One last thing, can you guys verify that you guys are admins to the site? Is there a way to, I guess, nail down, yes, we were the starters or we were the originators of this particular site?
Crystal Coleman is still the original admin, and she can confirm that we were admins. Joanne, are you still on the admin page there?
Am I?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm not on the Ernie Crafts one. No, I'm on some of the other ones that we have.
Yeah. Right, because Joanne and I started the community page, the San Diego our Revolution community page, but on the group page, Crystal Coleman is still the admin, and she can confirm that we were admins, and she can confirm that John Mattis was never ever an admin.
And we can confirm, she will totally confirm that we were admins on there.
Very cool. Wow, that's amazing, guys.
And not only that, remember, Josephine, the reason that we quit that one was because we were trying to warn against somebody that we believe to this day was a Hillary Clinton imposter coming in, like,
a plant.
Kind of a troll coming into our Facebook page and our group.
Mm-hmm.
And we saw a pattern that was seen all across the country where once the campaign came into town, all of a sudden these new people would pop up and they would start sabotaging existing events and existing groups.
Oh, okay.
Exactly what happened to us. And I can tell you the people who are involved, and it is absolutely amazing how effective they were.
You mean correct the record, essentially. Hillary Clinton paid trolls, essentially corporate trolls.
They were actually people here in San Diego.
Wow. That's amazing.
We confronted so many of them in our experiences online.
Multiple times. The person who inserted her in our group, inserted her and then walked away. And it was a very interesting situation that happened there. And they got in with some of the Bernie people, so when they were setting up the delegate caucuses, she was grabbing all of the locations to try to control control all of the locations for the delegate caucuses, and some of the rest of us like jumped in there and tried to grab some other. It was a very, very odd process. Josephine, if you have something to add on that.
No, it was worrisome for us because we worked so hard. I mean, Crystal started that page and right when Bernie announced in 2015. So we were working really hard on a grassroots level every weekend and on Facebook, on social media for, easily 40 hours a week. We worked so hard for a year and a half. And now and when it came to, down to the wire, we're having all these new people show up and trying to cause utter chaos.
Yes.
Wow. I wouldn't necessarily be shocked by that. I mean, it's a political campaign. You have, let me say it this way. She went brass knuckles.
The guy who installed her came from Washington, D.C., and there was a pair of them, and they both moved down to San Diego from Washington, D.C., and then I looked up the girl's information, and she was working for the DNC.
There's always these ads in our like Craigslist and some of these other things looking for operatives. Right. We're looking for, people who walk the grassroots campaign and all this other stuff. And the question becomes, okay, what other responsibilities do some of these people get? Like, even from the standpoint of saying willing to move and all this other stuff, meaning willing to go into other places or other localities.
These people are more highly placed.
Oh, I see what you mean.
There was a couple, there was a male and a female, they were not hooked up romantically. They both came out to San Diego from Washington.
Mm-hmm.
And they worked together and they're the ones who installed some of these people to sabotage our existing events. As a matter of fact, that's how we found out about them, because we had rented a local union hall for one of Bernie's meetings, the town hall meetings. And we had paid, it was like a big thing, we're going to have hundreds of people, and then this other guy pops up at another place, 500 people, to draw away from our event. And so
I see what you mean. I was misunderstanding.
It's like, oh, hey, we were doing this, but that's cool. We'll send, we'll take your overflow or whatever. We were trying to work with him. And we said, okay, let's be friendly, whatever. And he kept, Josephine, you can add to this, he would act very strangely. Most of the people who came in to work for Bernie would come in and say, one thing that kindred spirits, we were all working together.
Mm-hmm.
And he would come in and always work against us. And then he brought in this girl who just completely sabotaged all kinds of things and popped in out of nowhere. And then he walked away and never responded to anything. And again, the female who came out with him, when I looked her information up, she was working for the DNC.
So, okay, so I think I understand now. So you're saying that when you guys were doing groups or doing like, I guess you can say groups for Sanders, when you was doing meetings or some kind of like town halls or some kind of events, that they would have events for Clinton at the exact same time in order to try to drain away.
Bernie events at the exact same time.
Bernie events at the exact same time, to drain away support from your events.
Yeah, because we were known to be Bernie or bust. We were known to be diehard Bernie supporters.
I see.
So they were the go blue no matter who, and they would try to draw away the people that we had worked for a year to all bring together. We had a really good group here in San Diego. And I mean like a very large, active, wonderful group of volunteers and activists. And they came in and started sowing division and discord when Bernie's campaign started coming. I think it was in March of 2016.
Yeah.
They came out. Josephine, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah. Well, that's how the Democrats operated in San Diego always, because Joanne and I were part of the San Diego Progressive Democratic Club. We were the original people involved with that. And Mike Johnson was the president, Joanne was the treasurer, I was the secretary, Crystal Coleman was the vice president. But originally, when it was being formed, the people from the San Diego Progressive Democratic Club had a meeting. Mike Johnson was with them. He relayed to us, they don't want any Bernie people on being part of this club because they called us crazy. And Mike Johnson's like, wait a minute, I am a Bernie person. And so we started that, and then, after the primary, that just sucked the oxygen out of us, and we all left our positions. But they originally did not want us to be involved at all. And the Democrats were hardcore vote blue no matter who. And they tried their damnness. And the Bernie people we weren't going to go fall in line for Hillary. It wasn't going to happen.
You know, one of the things that recently came out in the authors of the book Shattered, he came out, I think it was on C-SPAN, was saying that Bill Clinton had a conversation with Tom Perez saying, don't let Sanders.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, like, explicit, unclear, unequivocal, don't let Sanders people take the party.
Right.
Very obvious in how they're trying to avoid that.
Yeah. I mean, the DCCC putting their thumb on elections all throughout the country. Steny Hoyer outright telling somebody, yes, I want you to get out the race. Yes. Despite the public not, making their choice yet. This stuff is amazing. Like, this is massively undemocratic.
It is.
And you can only really, it's hard to come to any other conclusion that the only reason you do stuff like this is because you're massively unpopular and you needed to find gimmicks in order to get or stay in the office, as opposed to just the typical way of going about politics and doing something that gets people to vote for you.
Or let's just be honest about this, and I hate to say this, but the Democratic Party is way more corrupt than the Republican Party.
That's mind-blowing, right? I mean, I think what it is, and in fact, I know what it is. I'm gonna be arrogant. I know what it is. The Republican Party is just outright for the 1%. They're shameless about it. Like, there's no right. It's hard to come. Yeah, it's hard to come to any other conclusion. It's like we are shameless for it for the party. The Democratic Party has a different modus operandi. It's like they're still coaxing on this thing of FDR, this hope and change stuff. But the problem is you have a bunch of plutocrats who are also in the party now, brought in by Mr. Bill Clinton. And as the plutocrats are in the party, you have to mend the gap between the left, who actually want real change and have values and actually want things to be different in the society, and the plutocrats, who essentially just want money in their pocket. Essentially a Republican agenda without, some of the rank racism, some of the other stuff that's associated with the party.
I've been calling it a duopoly for a long time, and I've been convinced for decades that both sides were working for the same corporate masters.
They are.
And it boils down to what Greg Palast said a long time ago: follow the money. Yeah.
I mean, the problem is the money goes into the entirety of the system. Like the political system runs on cash. Like, there's no, I don't know. What annoys me most about the media is the media pretends as if that's not true. Like, the media, it's like I always ask, are they incompetent or are they corrupt? Which one is it? When Chuck Todd is doing a story, does Chuck Todd know? So when they're having a conversation about Paul Ryan, and as they talk about Paul Ryan, and they're talking about him being a Catholic, and it's like, but this guy is the same guy who's trying to cut Medicare from old poor people. How on earth are you saying with a straight face that this man is a Catholic when he's willing to do this from his, his political policies? They act as if the fact that these people get all of this money has nothing to do with the policies that they do. Like that, it's always mind-blowing to me that they allow this to take place. And yet they do, and they keep the mask up and they just keep ticking along. It's amazing.
And that's
from the top to the bottom.
Yeah, it really is.
And that's something that people who are alleged conservatives complain about welfare. What they should be complaining about is corporate welfare, because if we could ever do the numbers on that, I'm pretty sure that the vast majority of public funds go into corporate welfare.
And you know what's sad about this? They talk about the corporate the welfare stuff. We give companies billions of dollars to be in our country. Like there's some of these states or some of these cities that would say, one of these states said, or one of these cities said, look, if you bring your corporation here, we will take the taxes that is going to go to the state and we will give it to you. Like you're talking about literally taking taxes that are supposed to go into the state. You're literally defunding a state in order to give this corporation jobs. This takes place all over the United States, where where these localities will give all of this money away to these corporations just to be in this society.
All over the country, but let's not forget the biggest corporate welfare is our military.
$1 trillion.
What we use our military for isn't for defending our borders or anything else. What we use
It's a jobs program.
For is opening markets.
Yeah.
Taking over other people's land, taking over other people's resources, so that our American companies can go in there and reap all of the benefits of other people's resources. So we guard, our Navy is designed not to protect the coast,
It's always been that way, though. I mean, if you go back to this idea of banana republics and all this other stuff, I mean, our military always did this. The Smedley Butler made this point, you know, it's like Al Capone only had a district and I had all of these other continents. He comes out and he says to himself, war's a racket. Like all of this stuff is kind of like a mob boss, you know, opening porting lanes in these other countries who wanted to close their shipping lanes. Like in China, where China wanted Brits to stop doing heroin or stop bringing, I think it was like opium into the city or something like that. Yeah. And they end up getting into a fight and Brits do it anyway. We're not going to stop our trade in this country. It's like, get out of here.
It's unbelievable what we've done to other countries.
It really is. Yeah, no, that's good.
Like with Israel and Palestine right now, you know, I mean, among so many other countries.
They don't say it.
What we did to Gaddafi in Libya, you know.
They don't say it. I mean, they don't bring it up. I mean, it's amazing.
And we could say, oh, these are evil dictators.
You know what?
Without actually explaining why and how and why are they dictators.
I saw the Chuck Todd. That was. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, because oftentimes they're dictators because we are funding all of these rebel groups in all these various countries to overthrow governments. So when those governments become distrustful and become more oppressive because they're trying to prevent.
Uh-oh. Screen froze. Uh-oh. Ah.
Oh, there it goes.
Yeah, I froze. I looked at the camera. I was like, okay, the camera's not moving. What happened? What happened? You know, we don't look that far into history. Like we honestly don't. We in some cases we were installing dictators in order to prevent what we consider to be these kind of leftist governments from coming into power, especially when you're talking about South America. Yeah. Or even if you're talking about South Asia. Putting in dictators, you know, freedom, justice, equality. Here's a dictator to stop left-wing dictators. Yeah, all right. Saddam. I mean, they forget that the Ba'ath Party, you know, Bush comes out and says he's an animal, forgetting the fact that he was our animal. He was our animal. I mean, the American media doesn't look for historical context. They don't bring it up. They make it look like.
They don't want to bring it up. They're instructed not to bring it up.
Yeah. They bring it out all at once.
Americans should become educated about these.
It's amazing. I mean, they let it. Yeah, it's amazing. So I'm going to let you guys go.
I want to let the audience know if they want more information about the Mattis file. Hashtag
Absolutely.
MATTESFILE. Hashtag Mattis file.
And if you send me that, I'll put it at the bottom of the thing, at the bottom of the page, so people can read it.
Yeah, we'll link it to the other article too, the one that was sent to you. That would be great.
Absolutely, yeah. I've read, I think, two of them. I think I've read one on Grimm, and I think I read one on the other one. But definitely, I'll send both. I'll put both at the bottom.
Excellent.
Guys, thank you very much. This is absolutely fascinating. I have to be honest. I am blown away by this. When I read the story, I don't think I fully got the impact of how screwed up this is. Like, and I guess it's screwed up on two fronts. A, this guy comes across as either a psychopath or either some kind of political operative, meaning just habitual liar. And B, the media completely failing miserably and utterly and completely at their job of even just asking the most basic question of, is he actually an administrator?
And if you don't mind, I'll email you some contextual information that will give you some background on everything.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. I definitely want to hear it. I appreciate it, guys. Guys, thank you for coming. Let me check this. Oh, wow. There are people who are donating. All right. Let me read a few of these. And let's see. Beltazar. It's not Jim and Joan. It's Agent. Beltazar. It's Siler. Also, YouTube censors mother flag. Let's see. I had a conversation with a Trump supporter where he was saying insane things. Jamal, 100% of MSNBC anchors polled yes to mainstream media. Oh, that's funny. We were talking about mainstream media just kind of going along with the story. Right. It's hilarious the people that screamed about the Benghazi was a witch hunt to be had. They were right. Are the same people supporting Russia witch hunt now.
Yep.
He said, to be honest, they were right. They're the same people supporting it now. I want my free t-shirt. Wait a minute. It's not free. Darn, Anthony Allen. Oh, Anthony, that's funny. Peter Dow in 2015, I'm for whichever Hillary wins the nomination. I'm happy to support all Hillarys who run in the primary, but will push for Hillary Clinton as a I'm willing to support any Hillary Clinton that runs in this race. That's hilarious. Joshua Renshaw, no idea why I'm confusing Hillary Clinton with push Trump corruption. It's like Sunday morning people in church smelling like liquor and ass throwing aspersions. Yeah, essentially, it's like, how on earth are you getting pissed off at the Trump people when you guys were also really, really close to Trump? Pay no attention to what happened Saturday night. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. Russia, Russia, Russia. Deflect, deflect, deflect. Joshua Renshaw. Love my audience, man. And there's one more.
I could give people 7 million reasons a year why they shouldn't listen to Rachel Maddow anymore.
My wife asked me the other day, she says, you know, you don't watch TV as much, or you don't watch news as much. I said, what are you talking about? I inhale news. I do it for my show. I have to, you know, I'm always reading. She says, yeah, you're always reading news. You're not necessarily watching it. And she saw me like Rachel Maddow. I said, well, that woman is now a lunatic who's going off the reservation. Have you ever met? It hurt me to my heart when I saw Keith Olbermann come out apologizing for his pissed offness at George Bush. It killed me. That killed me. Do you know Keith Olbermann was part of my political awakening? When I would watch YouTube and I would watch the old speeches that Keith Olbermann would give on George Bush. And I remember it was in my political memory to a certain degree. Well, he would just rail and rail and rail. And he would be on, TV and just like this lone soldier going after George Bush full tilt. And you're like, oh my God, this man is the only person who's out there saying this. This is amazing. He's telling the truth. He's being honest. When he would go after Lou Dobbs and Bill O'Reilly, oh, it was so funny. It was so funny. And now he's on The View saying, yeah, I was wrong about going after George Bush. I didn't realize how bad it could get, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It was sad. It was perverse. Anthony Allen, where's your Nina Turner interview? I'll wait. How much does she need to be paid? Oh, don't worry about how about it. She's a Democratic Party forever. Oh, that's wrong. That's wrong. I like Nina Turner. No, it's nothing wrong with Nina. I've been making this point of saying I want to have Nina Turner on for an interview. I've wanted to have Nina. I would love to have her on for an interview because I have questions that I want to ask her. My main question to this is, if Hillary Clinton won in 2016 and Hillary Clinton did the worst things that you could think of that's within the possibility, meaning she privatizes Social Security, she invades Syria, let's say she invade some other country and topple some of the government, and let's say she passes the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Let's say she does all this, and then in 2020 you have Ted Cruz, who she's running against. Well, all of these people who are saying, you had to vote Hillary in this 2016, will they also turn around and say you must vote Hillary Clinton again, despite all of the nasty stuff that took place? You got to vote Hillary Clinton again because Ted Cruz is a maniac. And if you say that, then you're stuck in a paradigm because that process can replicate itself over and over and over and over and over again.
That's like what happened with Obama.
Yeah, Mitt Romney is a maniac. You got to vote for Obama because Mitt Romney is a maniac. Right. You got to vote for Obama because he came
in saying all the right things.
Yeah.
And everybody was so excited, and it's like, great, we're going to have hope and change.
Jesse Jackson was crying. He was bawling his eyes out.
There was no hope, no change. There was nothing at all.
Done.
Our benefit. Again, nobody on Wall Street ever went to jail. No meaningful person went to jail.
95% of the wealth going to the top 1%.
Occupy Wall Street, he didn't acknowledge. He didn't acknowledge the Wisconsin uprising.
Not just acknowledge, crushed it, helped to crush it. I mean, meaning the FBI and all, they were working from Washington, assisting these local governments of crushing it. I mean, people scream that, oh, he didn't have this uprising to push him. Yes, he did. Occupy Wall Street is an uprising. I mean, that's literally what that is. And it scared the hell out of people.
The country was ready for it. The whole entire Republicans, Democrats, everybody across
they wanted something different. They wanted something different. They wanted change. I mean, and the wild part about it is it's this depression that people get. You can even make an argument that part of the reason Hillary Clinton lost was because how hard Obama hit this thing of hope and change versus the reality of what took place when he got in that office.
Oh, I would argue that's very much the reason that she lost.
Because who will believe her? Like, regardless of what she promises, everybody, it's like nobody trusts her.
Worse than he was.
Yeah, right. And that's the other part. That's the other part.
Now they're asking us to go
It's like from hope and change to just disappointment and disillusionment, or hope, disillusionment and bitterness, or something like that. Yeah, I mean, look, either politics is about getting something done or not, and there's so much energy that we expend just to stand still and hold on to what's been, granted, or what's been given from the standpoint of like the New Deal and everything else, how that stuff has been ripped away. There needs to be change. And I don't see the point of persisting the status quo system in the way the status quo system is, which is essentially what the party and what lefties, people who are supposed to be partial to, the far left, as they call it, wanted. What's the point in consistently going with the status quo? Like, we're being told, scientists are telling us that there's an asteroid that's going to hit the planet from the standpoint of climate. Some of these guys are saying you have 10 years. Why on earth am I going to put somebody in that office who's pushing fracking? Like, just one issue alone, when you get even if you take just the environment by itself, and I'm talking about a host of issues, though. Is she going to be gross as Trump on the economy? Yes, from the standpoint of these tax cuts and everything else. Yeah, she's going to be gross. Maybe not to the same degree, but why do you want somebody who's going to be gross to that degree at all? Like, it's like, Jesus Christ. It's like, what? Like, and then they're like, put her in office and then try to get her to do whatever. It's like, but you just put her in office. How are you going to try to get her to do anything? The same argument that they were making for Donald Trump is going to be the same argument they make for Ted Cruz or for, what's his name, Mike Pence or whoever else. It's going to be going in perpetuity. I asked Noam Chomsky this, and I'm going to let you guys go. I don't mean to keep you. And Chomsky kind of made this point of, well, you think 5 minutes about the decision and Donald Trump is horrible and he's a maniac, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But Noam Chomsky kind of misses that original point, though, and he doesn't necessarily touch that main point. That how do you get change in a system that is rigged in a way, and it's kind of mental blackmail to get you to essentially vote or compel you to vote in the same way over and over again because of how horrible the other party is. I mean, it's
done with the lesser of two evils.
Yeah, I too.
And I try.
Yeah, I'm done. No, you're fine. I'm done. I'm saying I'm done with the two evil thing too. It's you vote for the person who represents your interests.
I try to encourage people that the best hope for we, the people, is to take down the duopoly. And the most hopeful way we have of doing it peacefully is to sap them of popular support. Leave the parties.
Yeah, that's the only way. I agree. I call it solidarity.
Yeah, I believe that they can't successfully rig elections if they don't have any members.
And it goes even a little bit beyond that. And Jesus Christ, I'm enjoying talking to you guys. It goes beyond that. So politicians care about, I always say you have dollars or pitchforks. You have one or the other. Meaning these guys care about getting elected. And the way they get elected is using cash in order to allow them to kind of do whatever they need to do in the system itself. But which means that cash is one of the main drivers in the system. But what's fundamental is the vote. Meaning at the end of the day, you have dollars, you have pitchforks. The catch is, though, you don't have any movements. Like, you don't have anything else pushing these guys. The only thing that these guys are really overly concerned about is losing. Joe Manchin is on TYT because he's terrified of losing, not because he likes TYT. Some of these other people, what's her name? The one who helped rig it or who gave the questions over. I can't think of her name. Donna Brazile was on Tim Black, not because she loved Tim Black per se, because she wants to ingratiate herself to the left. They're trying to find ways to address this particular thing. Saying no forces them into one of two situations of either they lose or they die. I mean, either they lose or they change. I equate lefties who vote for Democrats to like the equivalent of an abused spouse, where it's like, they get beat, they get slapped, and they stay nonetheless. Zogby, the guy, he's on Twitter all the time complaining and whining and crying about how the Democratic Party is slapping him and beating him.
I just don't know how many times you have to be kicked to the curb before you just leave.
And they stay. It's like
to the leg. That's kicking them.
They kick them, but they stay. Like, they depowered Zogby. Zogby stayed. They're putting a thumb on the election process all throughout the country, and these people stay. And it's like, at which point do you say, I'm done? And then make them win based on that. Because what I suspect is they believe that the Trump-Russia thing is enough for them to get back in office, which means they don't have to change at all.
Not going to work.
Yeah, as long as they think they can get away with it, they will get away with it. Until they know that they're going to lose, openly know they're going to lose. Nothing changes.
Well, that's why they turn into indivisible
Yeah.
Complete astroturf movements that are designed to bring people into the Democratic Party again. And they talk about the blue wave, once again, as if there are only two options.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, guys, we have many other options.
Yeah.
We don't have to vote red or blue. And I don't even like the term when they talk bipartisan. Why do we have any kind of bipartisan anything? It should be people.
Yeah.
Not parties.
And what you mean by that is, you know, they like to use this term lead by your values and everything else. I don't know what that means. I do know that, yeah, I want human beings to try to make decisions on what's best for the other human beings without necessarily being purely ideologically bent in the way they go about their affairs.
Exactly.
And the problem is with the Democrats, Republicans are just outright for the 1%. Democrats have to pretend as if they're not, which gets into hypocrisy, gets into this kind of, you know, these weird ways in which they contort themselves. And then you say, well, wait a minute, you say this, but you're doing this, which means they get caught with that a lot. Like,
Yes.
I'm not going to bitch because I can rant about this forever because it annoys the hell out of me. Being American, it is pernicious in my society or my community where like 90% of us voted for Hillary Clinton.
Right.
This woman talking about hot sauce in her purse. It's like, come on.
And that was one of the things that really impressed me about Bernie Sanders' primary campaign was that there were so many people that united across alleged ideological lines.
Yes, they did.
Because we were all focused on what mattered the most. And that was that our government would come back to the people, or so we hoped.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm going to end it on this because I'm running my mouth. But I went to one of the Sanders things in, I think it was Philadelphia. I took the train, rode, you know, early that morning, all for like hours, got to Philadelphia, and I get to the campus, I think it's Temple University, and there's a line that's wrapped around like maybe 3 or 4 times trying to get into the place to see Sanders. And it's freezing, it's a lot of people, and it's a love fest. Yeah. Like everybody is happy, everybody is bubbly. You have all of these people who are just excited. And you know, you watch Trump rallies and those things look like hate rallies. Those things are terrifying. And you have a Sanders rally and these people are just in love. Like, and I don't mean that in this kind of superficial way. I just mean it. You have somebody who's out there espousing the things that they believe for a long time that they've never heard espoused. And they're like, oh my God, this country could be different. And this guy is saying these things that's in me. And, you know, it takes 7 hours for us to get into the place. Like it takes that long for those lines to get all the way in. Nobody is pissed off. Nobody is angry. Nobody is upset. Everybody is digging what's taking place. Like it's an amazing experience. It's like, yeah, it's like a hippie fest to some degree. It's like each one, it's almost like it's strange because it's like you feel like it's almost like a religious experience in an odd way. I went, my wife and I were in Italy, in Rome, and we just so happened to be there visiting the Vatican when the Pope comes out. And it's just random. It wasn't planned. And you have all of these people staring up at this one very specific tiny little man who's standing up in the thing. And you have this feeling that I have no idea what this man is saying. I'm not religious at all. And yet, you know, you feel something with all of these people focused in this way. That's kind of the way it felt there. It's like all of these people have this very specific focal point in regards to how they're feeling. And you feel in this odd way at one with all of these people because you guys are kind of ideologically pushed in this kind of real way. Like it's an amazing experience.
It is. It really is.
Yeah.
Are people in a Bernie rally.
Yeah.
It's amazing how many wonderful, nice people just flock to Bernie.
Well,
I think that's what's so disappointing for so many of us because you could tell that he was such a genuine hope for so many people, and so many of us were just crushed when whatever happened there at the end, he gave up, whatever you want to call it. I mean, a lot of us were absolutely just literally heartbroken. Let
me ask you this one and last question. Okay, wait a minute. Let me do 2 more, and I have one last question, and it's going to start an argument in my chat. Anyway, great interview. Got to go. See you guys later, Jamal. You have to give it a try. Also, wanted to see you cover the Onion piece on Israeli murders. I saw the Onion piece on Israeli murders, and I laughed, and I felt bad for laughing because it was funny, but it was funny in a really dark humor way. Like it says something like Israelis is charging or they kill a dangerous baby or something like that. Like brave Israeli soldier kills dangerous baby as it's sleeping in his crib. And it's like you laugh, but you're like, oh God, that, like, you know, it's that weird, it's good comedy, but Jesus Christ. Like, but don't get me wrong. When I'm saying good comedy, but Jesus Christ, I'm saying the Jesus Christ and it's good comedy, which kind of gives you that feeling of Jesus Christ. They're making this political point, but they're doing it in this like dark humor way. Oh man. So last question. And like I said, I was probably going to start an argument in my chat because I know how some people feel about Sanders. Personally, I like Sanders. I don't necessarily like some of the stuff that he's been doing after the campaign, but I like Sanders. And if you run again, I'll vote for him. Do you think Sanders was a sheepdog for the Democratic Party? And whether or not he was a sheepdog for the Democratic Party, if he runs again, would you vote for him again? Seeing as all of the Russia stuff that he's kind of pushed and all this other stuff.
You want to go, Julian, or should I? I'll just say, for me, I gave the max FEC donation. I gave hours upon hours upon hours a week for Bernie. I for a year and a half of my life. I did that for him. I believed in him along with many other people. We just did so much for him because we thought this is our last chance to really get someone good in here. And I don't want to say I should have done more. So I did everything I could for him because I believed in him. It was crushing. It was crushing to have him turn around and try to tell us to vote for her. And try to now be the sheepdog. Do I think he's a sheepdog? He's doing a piss poor job at it because a lot of people left the party. And there's more independents now than Democrats or Republicans. I don't know if he was initially really generally supposed to be the sheepdog candidate. I don't think so. I don't want to believe that. Maybe he is. I don't know. Would I vote for him again? Yes. Would I put all this effort that I did this time around knowing that they're going to rig it again? I don't think so. Because my question for him, my question is a threefold question. If I ever get to talk to him, would be one, I love you for sticking to all the issues that matter. So that leads to the next question. Does democracy matter?
Wow. Uh-oh.
Yes. If he says yes, then I'm going to say, why? Why didn't you do like Tim Canova and call out all the election fraud that happened in just about every state you lost? How do you expect to fix any of the other issues that matter if you can't even have a true, honest, fair, clean election?
And wouldn't touch it, by the way.
Oh, and I would add, by the way, too, I talked to Bernie's campaign about this John Mathis thing also.
Really? What did they say?
Well, some of them sounded excited and, oh, I'm going to make sure that this gets to the right people, blah, blah, blah. Never heard anything back. And again, this is the John Mathis thing, but many of us were also trying to contact the campaign during the elections and talking about all the rigging that was happening across the country. Nobody in his campaign ever did anything about it. And that's something that I think a lot of us were, again, very, very
pissed off about. Let's be honest, we're pissed off about it. I mean, we could see it as it was happening, and our perspective was, you've gotten $200 million, and these guys are cheating you. Do something about it. Like, these people are giving you this money for a reason. Do something. Say something.
I mean, he could just say something when he's giving a speech. Say one thing in the public, you know, during a live rally or something. Say, and I wanted to address the election fraud that's going on.
You know, and one thing about that. So, and it's something that I learned from Donald Trump. If Donald Trump wasn't in office, a lot of the stuff I would not have learned. Political latitude. You make your own political attitude. The rest of the public will conform to you to some degree. Sometimes, if you can control the narrative, you can push it. You can essentially run past it. Donald Trump screamed rigging at the top of his lungs, and he was able to get away with that without any issue at all. Even though everybody said you can't do it, you can never do it, you can't say it, you can't bring it up, etc., etc. Donald Trump says, "Screw that! I'm going to say rigged." Now, granted, Donald Trump was full of it. It was nonsense. Well, yeah, but that's just because he wanted to hit Hillary, and he just kind of assumed that. I guess what I'm saying is people could say that stuff. They just don't. In Shatter, they kind of made the point that Sanders didn't want to say anything about it because Sanders didn't necessarily want to call, you know, spore loser and all this other stuff. He didn't want to use those labels. But I agree with you on that. You can, whether he was going to get hit with the spore loser thing is kind of besides the point. he lost, and those people gave him a huge amount of cash in order to push for their interests.
He didn't lose. He won. They just rigged the election.
Well, right, they rigged the election. That's kind of what I mean. I mean, like, if his concern was, oh my God, I'm going to lose because they're going to, you know, dislike me if I say they rigged it. Well, it's kind of a moot point. That's kind of what I'm getting at. He lost. Like, he didn't. Like either way, either you rigged it and you lose, or you say something about it and they don't like you for saying something about it. And you, either way, it's like you still ended up in the same spot. Those people.
Been able to win, though, if he had been honest about it.
That's kind of my, and this is what I'm getting at when I'm saying political attitude. He could create a certain amount of political window by saying, look, this isn't going out right. This is, you know, this looks bad. Say something, even if it's tepid and light and not necessarily as hard as somebody else would hit it. Say something. He didn't say squat. He wouldn't touch it. He wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole.
Not at all.
I'm fairly convinced that he was threatened.
Yeah.
Like Josephine said, though, because all of us, we put in hours and hours. We donated maximum amounts. We did, you know, we dedicated our lives to Bernie for a year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
And would any of us do that again? I know Josephine said no. I think Jim agrees, probably not. And for myself, absolutely not.
Wow.
But he lost a lot of, he had so much power at his fingertips in the people.
Yeah, he did.
And he tossed it out because he'll never regain that again.
Wow. I've heard people say that, like, you're not the first person, you're not the 10th person that I've heard say the exact same thing. I put a huge amount of energy into it. I mean, Debbie, the same progressive. Like, when she talks about the Sanders thing, I think part of what comes out of her is, you know, I thought that there might have been something here in the way that the person was going about the campaign. And then she said, I tried to contact him over and over again about the election fraud. Nobody will respond. And it's like you could see it with your own eyes that this is taking place. He does nothing about it. She was pissed. She was pissed. And so I don't. Yeah, I would imagine if you had all of these people who are pushing in the election, even if you take out, even if you say just going by the narrative that the Democratic Party itself is coming up with, what Donna Brazile is saying, it was still cheating. You know, they were still lying. Like, even just taking a specific narrative, they were still lying to the public.
I'm fairly convinced that he was threatened into jumping on the establishment bandwagon, and there's a lot of personal experience that backs that up. The day after he endorsed Hillary Clinton, which was supposed to be a DNC rule that he was following, we had a mass conference call with him as delegates. I don't know if you're ever familiar with that.
Yeah.
And in that, he told us, and this is almost verbatim, he says, I want you to understand three things. Number one, I haven't conceded. Number two, I haven't suspended my campaign. And number three, I want you to vote for me at the convention because I know you're not going to vote for her. And then on the first day of the convention, he gave a speech to his delegation and told us to vote for her.
Wow.
And then on Tuesday of the convention,
that's when he got booed, by the way.
When he, yes, we booed him.
Good for you.
And on Tuesday of the convention, when he conceded, if you look up pictures of him at that point, and I'm going to say this with my foil hat firmly in place, he had this nasty cut on his right cheek that's surrounded by a bruise. And the cut was about 1/2 inch long, and it was at least 1/8 of an inch deep, and it didn't even have a Band-Aid on it, and it was fresh. And then if you look at a photograph, I can send you a photograph of him leaving the convention that night. He looks like he was gut shot.
Yeah, he had skin cancer there.
She said that was. She said he had skin cancer removed from that spot.
There is a skin cancer, and it's called Clinton, but
that was said, but there was never anything in the media about it. There was never anything from him about it. And if there was a skin cancer removed and it was such a fresh cut, there would be some kind of dressing on it.
There would have been something on it. I saw the wound. I remember the wound. I didn't necessarily know what it came from. And I've heard people said he was threatened.
I read one forensic analysis that said the cut was caused by whoever slapped him was wearing a ring.
She said he was. She said she saw that during the primaries. So it was there prior.
I did, Jim. I saw that because I noticed it, and I actually wanted to contact his campaign because I know all about skin cancer, and I wanted to call them and say, "Hey,
Get that checked.
Get somebody to take a look at this because I think it's skin cancer." And then I saw later on he did end up having skin cancer. So that was actually definitely skin cancer.
Good. And subsequent to that, every time I've watched him on a video spewing the establishment narrative, he was absolutely deadpan while he was doing it.
Yeah, I mean, there are political pressures that I think people are under. I mean, for example, it's easier to go along with a political story sometimes than it is to go against the political story. Any particular politician is going to have to make a choice on whether or not it's worth the lift to push against the mainstream media's narrative. In Sanders' case, Sanders wants to run again, so Sanders needs to kind of conform to some degree because those, you have a bunch of Hillbots who may not vote for him otherwise. Jill Stein doesn't have to conform to that at all. So Jill Stein doesn't conform to it, and she pushes back against the narrative.
Donald Trump pushed back, and he won.
Donald Trump pushed back, right? Because Donald Trump had to push back. Donald Trump, that the political narrative is against the legitimacy of Trump. If Donald Trump agrees that the Russians had something to do with his campaign, Donald Trump would be admitting that Donald Trump didn't get to the presidency on his own steam. Donald Trump is never going to admit that.
But I mean, before everything, Donald Trump was pushing back against the establishment narrative from day one.
That is true. That is true.
He won the election.
He is. That is
why
true.
The Republicans didn't even want him.
Back against the establishment narrative and win. I think that's not correct.
Oh, I'm not saying you can't. No. Don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying you can't. I'm saying each political figure makes a choice on whether or not they should push back against it or whether they should go along with the stream. And they make this calculus of what do I have to gain versus what do I have to lose and making the choice to do it. Sanders, for whatever reason, made the choice to go along with the narrative. Jill Stein had made her estimates of, well, I have nothing to lose in this, so I'm going to push back on the narrative. I'm making a point that it's not so much that you can't do it. I'm just saying oftentimes they don't do it. They don't even try. They just go along with the stream. Like, for example, if a story comes up and they're talking about Syria, Sanders is going to do one or two things. He can make the story about him pushing back against the narrative, or he can go along with the narrative to a certain point and then try to inject his own bit of reality into it. That's typically what he does. Bashar al-Assad is a horrible dictator. He's a bad guy. And then he goes along with whatever he's going to say about the story. I mean, he does it all the time. It's his way of trying to, I guess, diffuse the conversation without necessarily getting stuck in the conversation. It's like his political ploy. But yeah, I'm not saying you can't do it. I don't want you to misunderstand me on that one. I'm not saying you can't. I'm just saying oftentimes they don't. They don't even try.
I just wish that we had more people who would push back.
Yeah. Dennis Kucinich, push back.
Yeah.
He pushed back. I love him to death. I mean, Tulsi Gabbard, pushed back. I mean, so there's some people that do it. There are some people that do it. Guys.
Thanks so much again, Jamal. And also, if anybody wants to know more about it, hashtag Mattisfile, MATTESFILE. Hard News Network did an excellent summary of everything if you want to check it out.
Absolutely. Send me the links. I'm going to put the links at the bottom. And guys, thank you very much for coming on. This story has been fascinating. And I know I've kept you guys on longer than that was intended, but like I said, it was fascinating. So
good conversation. Thank you.
I appreciate and I feel privileged to have any opportunity I can to do some truth bombing.
And I appreciate you doing that truth bombing on this site. So thank you very much. Look, I know you guys are annoyed by the story, and I'm annoyed by the story too, which is why I do the story, because it's like the mainstream media has been pushing nonsense, and they've been pushing nonsense for 2 years. And it's like, would the mainstream media repudiate the nonsense that they've pushed? The answer is probably going to be no, which means they're probably going to ignore stuff like this. So yeah, I'm going to cover stuff like that.
Thanks so much.
So
thank you.
Thanks, guys. Y'all have a good one.
You too.
All right, guys, I'm going to end this here. If you guys enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe, and of course, you guys can always support through Patreon. And I think there was one more. Guys, I'm going to have a few more stories this evening. But I need to go help my wife, and I'm late.
Absolutely.
Bernie or Guillotine 2020. Choose your revolution. Bernie or Guillotine. When you run as a progressive and go neoliberal, that's not changed. That's more of the same. When you call for transparency but jail W. Beers, more of the same. More of the same. All right, guys. You all have a good evening. Bye-bye.